How's it going? Every year for the last few years, at the start of football season, my sister has been kind enough to send me a reminder of the South and some of our traditions down there. And she does that by sending me a mess of green peanuts. In the South, one of our traditions during football season, as well as when we're on back road trips, is boiled peanuts. A lot of people who are not from the South have never even considered the idea of boiling a peanut. In the South, it's a staple. We do all kinds of things with peanuts. We make peanut butter, we roast peanuts, we feed them to the hogs. But when you boil them, that's when something really special happens. Today I'm going to boil this mess of peanuts my sister sent me, and we're going to watch Monday Night Football, the first Monday Night Football of the season. But I'm going to share the process of making the peanuts with you, so if you ever get a wild hair and want to make your own, you'll know how. So it starts out with this mess of peanuts, and the first thing I do is I rinse them and pull out the ones that don't look like they're going to be very good. By the way, there's only 3 ingredients for boiled peanuts, unless you want to be fancy, which none of us are. You need the peanuts, green peanuts, salt, and water. That's it. And a big boiler with a lid. So I'm going to take this batch of peanuts here and I'm going to put it in a strainer. I'm going to rinse it off. I'm just rinsing off the dust. I'm not trying to get the dirt off of them because, dirt helps make you healthy, and if it's southern dirt, it's extra special. So we're going to get the dust off of it. We're going to pick out the ones that aren't so good. Then we're going to put it in a pot. We're going to salt it down. Now, you put so much salt in it that it's actually referred to as brine. It's extremely salty water. And then you just boil it until the peanuts are tender. And when they're tender, you turn the heat off and let them soak. That's when they become salty. So you boil them until a couple, 3 hours until they're tender, and then you just let them soak until they soak up enough salt till you're satisfied with the saltiness. Yeah, you keep having to taste them to try them, sadly. So anyway, let's get these washed and picked, and then we will get them on the stove, because it's going to take a while to make them, but it's going to be worth it in the end. Just a quick Editor Rico note. I wanted to mention here at this point also where I learned how to make these boiled peanuts. This was handed down from my father, who learned it from his folks, and he actually, as a young child, used to get peanuts real cheap and would boil them and tote them around his little town and sell them. For I think a nickel a bag, he said. So this is there are no measurements in this recipe. It's just what it is, and it's been handed down, and that's how a lot of stuff happens in the South. So back to the video. We'll pick out some of the ones that look a little suspect. Really nice batch here. Alright, so the next thing we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and put them in the pot. Now, the thing is, you need to put them in the pot before you put the water in. Otherwise, they'll overflow the pot. So you put the peanuts in first, and then fill it up almost to the top with water. Whew. Barely fits in that pan, that pot. I ended up having to make 2 pots of this. It was just too much in one pot to put in there. There wasn't hardly any water in there, and it would have not been very good overall. So I just split it up into 2 pots, so we're going to just boil them both. Same process for each. Alright, let's get the salt in there now. Don't panic at the amount of salt I'm putting in there. It's not going to absorb all of it. If you taste the water, it should taste salty. Alright, so what we're going to do now is we're going to heat these to boiling, and then we're going to put a lid on them, and then we're going to let them boil for, I don't know, 2 or 3 hours probably. After 2 hours, we'll start tasting them for tenderness. So that's the first stage of this. It's all about trial and error. You just keep tasting it until you feel like they're tender enough. And when they get to the proper consistency, and you have to kind of know what that is, just because you've been eating them, we've been eating them all of our lives. So you'll know what the proper consistency is. And then at that point, we turn off the heat and we just let them soak. All right, that's where we're at now. We're getting ready to get the boiling. Okay, anyway, that's what we're doing. All right, so the peanuts have come to a boil. We're going to go ahead and turn the heat down to a simmer. Then we're going to put a lid on it. And that's where it's going to stay for a couple hours. I guess we'll see you back in a bit. All right, they've been cooking for 2 hours now. We're going to go ahead and give one a taste. I put it in a spoon and had to actually run it under cold water to cool it down, but see how it's doing. Okay, very tender. I'm really happy with the consistency there. We're going to go ahead and turn the water off. It is actually a little salty too, so let me try one more. Okay, the ones in the smaller pot are not quite ready. All right, so I tried another one in the big pot as well, and they're not quite done. We're going to let them go another half hour. We'll try them again. We'll go a half hour at a time. But the flavor is certainly there. Just a little grainy still, so we're going to let them, get a little more tender. All right, it's been another 40 minutes. This is the one from the small pot. Perfect. Not very salty though, so we're going to shut it off and we're going to let those soak. All right, now one from the big pot. Perfect. And salty. I'm going to let the big pot soak about 15 minutes. I'm going to let the little pot soak about 30 minutes. And we'll come back and test them, but the texture's perfect now, so we're not going to be boiling them anymore. I'm going to take them off the heat and we're going to let them soak. So as you can see, the small pan, the peanuts have started to sink. So those are looking pretty good. The bigger pan, they're not going to sink because it's so full. So I believe we're going to give the big pan a try because it was already fairly salty. And I think these are probably done. So let's try the big pan now. All right, here we go. Pretty damn good. The big one's done. We're going to give the little one another 15 minutes and we'll see how that goes. But the big one I'm going to go ahead and drain and let it sit for a minute before I start to eat them. And we'll come back and check the little one here and then we'll wrap this up. Alright, hopefully this will be our final test on the small pot. I've been snacking on the big pot. It's delicious. Here's the test. I'm going to go ahead and call this one. The small pot's a little less salty, but that's perfectly fine. The peanuts themselves are delicious. I'm really thrilled with the way they came out. So, that's really all there is to boiling peanuts. You get green peanuts, you put them in a salty brine, you boil them until they're the proper tenderness, and then you let them soak in the salty water until they're the proper saltiness, and then you drain them and you eat them. One thing about peanuts, boiled peanuts, they're not friendly to your innards, so you can't overdo it. So I'm going to be bagging these up in Ziploc bags and putting them in the fridge. But yeah, if you get a little overzealous with your boiled peanut eating, you'll pay the price. It's almost worth it. But I'm going to be smart with this batch, I think. Alright, there you go. Boiled peanuts. It's what's for dinner and lunch. Breakfast, probably. We'll see you later.